How's everyone doing today? So it's Sunday, or at least it's Sunday here. If you're watching in the replay, it could be Tuesday. That's how we roll. What we've been trying to do is every week do a live stream where we can talk about video editing, tips, tricks, techniques, all the things that you guys might need to make better video content in order to grow your YouTube channels. So that's what we're going to do here today. Typically what we do is take some questions from the chat. I'll be pulling up Filmora. I might show you some things that I've been thinking about that reflect some of the comments I get in the comment section. Sometimes people ask me things in the comments section on videos that aren't necessarily related to the video they're watching, but it's just questions they had, and I try to answer those the best I can. Who do we got in the chat today? We've got Heidi. Good to see you, Heidi. And of course, Heidi saying hello to Mr. Paul Peck, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Paul Peck in the house. Albie, good to see you here too, my friend. And the great Doug Hewson, coming to you all the way from Australia. It's good to see you, Doug. So I've got a couple things going on here. My camera's in 4K today. If I seem a little cropped, it was in 4K, and I just left it there because I was filming in 4K, and I went, what the heck? Right? Doesn't hurt to stay in 4K. Let me adjust some things over here. I don't usually do that, but I just thought I would for no other reason than I can. So, wait, I think you meant shout you out. But that's a good way to introduce something that I think I'm going to try today. A lot of people have been asking me, hey, Daniel, how do you do like a gunshot effect? Like, how do you do that? How do you make that happen? So I actually thought one of the things we could do today is actually put one together. I've never actually done a gunshot effect. Part of that being because I'm always, incredibly nervous that YouTube will come after me for simulated violence, which is one of their policies. You can't have simulated violence, or you could get limited reach. But I'm not afraid to push the boundaries a little. Let's try it. What do you say? Listen, I'm going to open up Filmora. Let me get Filmora going here, and share my screen, and maybe we can build this together. All right. I like doing things together. Here's my screen. Let's see. Let me add this in here. All right. This is my Filmora screen. Let me hide some of this stuff. Let me hide my StreamYard parts and pieces. This live stream, of course, is brought to you in part by our good friends at StreamYard, your number one choice for live streaming. If you want to start live streaming today, StreamYard makes live streaming simple. So definitely check them out. Links down in the description below. So let's talk about this for a second. If we decided we were going to do a gunshot effect, talk to me here in the chat, people. I like to deconstruct things. Now, I'm using Filmora today, right? I'm using Filmora 10, but you can be using any video editing software because building techniques, building a video edit, I like to think about what it is I'm trying to create and then deconstruct it. So if we were going to talk, about making a gunshot effect, what do you guys think? Like, what's the first thing that we would probably need if we were building that gunshot effect? Yeah, shout out in the chat anything you think we might need to collect to build something like this. Oh my God, I'm live. Thank you for all the tutorials. You're very welcome, my friend. Anthony Paul TV. It's good to have you here, buddy. If you were going to make a gunshot effect, let's see, what would we need? Well, Albie says, Albie-tastic, of course, is, well, you need a gun. Well, that's great. That's absolutely. A gun, I think Simlocity says, yeah, you definitely need a gun, right? I like Briary Creek, like fishing, jumps right in and says audio. You need audio. Yeah, absolutely. And Simlocity says, absolutely, you'd need a gun. Sound, audio was a big part of it. Let's see, my friend Dimitri went hard on it. He said audio, a person shooting, and a person getting shot. Well, you went violent. You went full on violent with it, my friend. Which is okay. Sound effects, a gun. Here's one. Joe Fortalillo says you'd need like a flash. That's a pretty smart choice right there, right? Because if a gun is shooting, like the muzzle flash, right? That's a big part of it. Just having a gun sitting there, you'd probably need some portion of that. Bullet, here's one. Here's one from our friend Adamola, says, yeah, you probably need a bullet in there somewhere. I think all of these are great suggestions. Flash and sparks, maybe. I think those are the pieces, right? So we probably need some sort of a gun. I don't know if I'll use an actual gun. Or maybe we'll simplify it a bit. we need some sort of like a muzzle flash or a fire effect, right? Something that looks like it was getting fired. Here's a good one. Here's a good piece. I'm going to get this name wrong. Badradine says smoke, like smoke from the gun. That's a great element. These are the things I like to think about first. Like I get in my head, the reason I like this exercise is every time I film, I always think about what am I going to need to pull this off? And I get my shot list together. Now, sometimes I can get those assets from certain places and download them. And sometimes I have to create them myself. So if I know what I need, if I can deconstruct it, I need this, I need that, and get those pieces, it makes it easier for me to start putting it together. So I'm gonna use all of your suggestions. Let me find some assets here. Here we go. Let me pull some of these assets in and see if they'll do what we want. Let me share this. Bullet Trail, that was a good one too. Bullet Trail, I like that. I like Bullet Trail. Okay. And of course, finger gun. I like that. Pew pew. Finger gun is great. I'm going to use finger gun, Doug. Let's go with finger gun. All right, let me go full screen here and let's talk about what we're doing. I like finger guns. I think finger guns will get me in less trouble. Can you see that? There's someone just pretending to like simulate a gun. Hey, if you can make it look like your hand is actually a gun, and then I think we've done something even cooler than a gun, okay? Because it's the same technique, but let's see if we can actually make it look like a fake handgun. Handgun? Maybe that's where handguns got their name. A hand acting like a gun can actually shoot out a bullet and make it look and sound convincing. If we can do that, then I think we've accomplished something. So let's start right here. This is that footage. I'm going to bring that down in my timeline. Let's keep it simple. I don't need it to be super high quality. Let's see. Let's see. It's a little cinematic here. Let me crop this to fit. Okay. So now it fits my 16:9 screen. Okay. There's the shot. I also have, let's see, I went to Production Crate. I think you guys have heard me talk about this before. There's a site that I use called Production Crate that has some free assets and some paid assets, and they have overlays like, muzzle flashes and smoke and sound effects, and I like using them a lot. Productioncrate.com, really good place to go check out. I'll put a link in this description afterwards so you guys can go check it out if you want. But they've got some, I've used them a lot. They just got some cool assets that you can go there and say, hey, do you guys have this? So that's what I'm going to use. Some of the stuff I found from Production Crate. Let me see. What did I get here? Ooh, this is a cool one. So it's a muzzle. It's the muzzle flash, which is very cool. And can you see this right here? Let me go full screen. Yeah, it's actually the bullet. The bullet casing shoots off. You can't really see it because of the white in there. Let me see if I can do this. Once I render it, you'll be able to see it. Sometimes these overlays, they get white in Filmora, but can you see up in the left there, that bullet casing flying? That's cool. That's cool. So, and let's stop right there. If I want to use this effect, well, then that's the first thing I'm going to say as well, is a bullet casing flying. That'll really make it seem real, like from a handgun, like an actual bullet casing. But that means I'm going to need another audio effect. I'm going to need this, like the sound of a bullet casing maybe hitting the ground, right? Because that will really help sell it if I can cover all angles, like the gun firing, the muzzle flash, the smoke you guys mentioned, the sort of the trail of the bullet a bit, and get the bullet casing and audio, the sound of the gunshot, and I'll get the sound of that bullet casing. I think we'll be in good shape. One thing I noticed here, though, is that this shot, the muzzle flash goes the other way. So it's shooting from left to right. So let me do this down here in my timeline. Let me left click on my footage, and I'm going to transform this and flip it the other way in the upper left. You can just hit that flip button in Filmora, and it flips it the other way. So now it just flips it going, mirror image of that. So that'll work for us. Let's grab that muzzle. Well, you know what I'm going to do first? Here's what I think. This is how I think I'm going to do this. Let's go full screen. Let's see if we can mark out exactly where each shot is. I think if we can say, well, wait a minute, we got the hands like pulling back. If we can put markers on that footage, it'll be a lot easier to add things like the muzzle flash and the sound, because we'll have a marker to help tell us exactly where those things should fall, right? Instead of trying to constantly guess and move around. So let's try that first. Let's get some markers. If you don't know how to use the marker setting in Filmora, most video editing software has this. If you double left click on your footage, in the upper right, just to the right of the render button, there's a marker tab. And anywhere the playhead is, it'll drop a marker on whatever you had selected. Here I have a track selected. If I had the timeline selected instead, it would drop it up in the timeline in case I wanted to put a marker, you know, on a bunch of stuff that's happening. So let's do this. Let's slowly scroll through, and I want to see if I can stretch this out. And right before, I'm going to go frame by frame. I want to catch this right where it looks like the shot is, where this shot is fired. Okay, that's where the hand starts moving. Let me start that frame before. I'm going to double left click on this footage, and I'm going to click on that marker. Now, I don't know if you can see this, but right where the playhead was, right here, where I'm moving my mouse, can you see that blue marker? So that tells me, okay, there's one spot. Let's scroll forward. There's one shot, pseudo shot. Let's see where we find another one. The hand moves a bit, and there's where it starts moving again. Let me get back to right where it just starts moving, like right that frame it starts moving. So let me go right before to there and put a marker again on that piece of footage. We'll do a few shots. What do you think? Like a few, 3, something like that? That should probably work, right? Let me scroll forward again. Right there, it started moving again. It's still, and there's motion. So I'm going to go to the frame where it's still, and I'm going to add in another marker. So if I scroll this down, you can see I've got 1, 2, 3 blue markers on this piece of footage. Okay. So now we know we have this like fake handgun, pew pew, as Doug Hewson would say. And now we need to add, let's take this muzzle flare thing that we found in Production Crate, and let's layer it on top. So it's a VFX that I downloaded. It's already got a transparent background. It just has the sort of gunfire, you know, the muzzle flare, and then a bullet casing popping out, which is super cool. I think that's going to be awesome. So let me grab that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the timeline here and find the very first marker I put. I've got 3. So here's my first one right there. I'm going to say, okay, let me bring this muzzle flare thing down, muzzle flash, and let me see what it looks like. It looks like, okay, so right from the very first frame, it's already got the flash. Okay, so that's cool. So what we want to do here is, but it's in the wrong spot. It's in the middle of the hand. Let's lock the main track. And in Filmora, what you can do is you double left click on the track you want to move, and in the upper right, you'll see, it's kind of hard to see, but there's a racetrack around it now, but you can see there's sort of this cross sign with arrows that lets me know I can move this. So I'm going to left click and hold, and I'm going to drag it, and let's try to figure out maybe right there on it almost follows the shape of the fingers. That looks kind of cool. Something like that. And then as it moves through, the bullet casing falls. Cool. That's kind of cool. Let's go to the next one. Let's go to that next marker, which is right here. I'm just going to left click and copy this. I'm going to paste the exact same thing there. Let's double check where it is, though. The hand probably moved a bit, right? That's one of the things we want to think about in here. Like if it was a real gun or your hand, it doesn't matter. Just pasting this at the point where another shot happens in the footage that may have moved, so the muzzle flash may not line up. So let's double check that to make sure everything lines up. So you can already see it looks a little high, right? This one right here looks a little high. Kids, don't do drugs. Let me move this down. Let me put it more where I think it should be, like it was in the other one. Kind of like there. All right, that matches a little better. And then I've got one more. Let me scroll forward a bit. I've got one more shot that we already pre-marked. Makes it nice and easy to know where I'm dropping effects. And I have this still copied, so let's paste it one more time. Let's go back to that third spot. It looks a little bit above as well. Let's kind of move it right there. All right. So that's what we've got so far. So it's very sort of simplified, no big deal. It's just someone pretending, making a gun with their hands and shooting. And we added the first thing we thought of was just an immediate effect of that muzzle flash to see if we can, let's just see if we can recreate a gun, right? So let me do this. I'm going to quickly render this just because with these VFX, especially in Filmora, I saw some of that white screen. That means I have to render it so that it'll play smoothly and it won't, you'll be able to see the layers of some of these MOV files and things. Okay, so let me do this. Let's take a quick peek. Let me shrink it this way. And let's just go back to the beginning and let's see if it's convincing. And let's see if at least the spot that I chose was right. So as we play this out, bang, bang, bang. Kind of looks pretty good. I may want to push it back. It almost looks like, you know, I don't know. I kind of like it right there. I think that flash is pretty decent. What do you think? I think does that looks good to you in the chat room? Let me know. Hey, there's my pal Blaine. Good morning, Daniel. Thanks for sharing your knowledge with us and for your ongoing contributions to the creator community. Always appreciated. Blaine, thank you for the super chat, my friend, and your contributions to our community is really appreciated, as well as the super chat. So appreciate you being here. I appreciate the super chat. It means a lot, buddy. Let me hear. What do we got going on? So what do you think? Did that look okay? Does that seem to, let me pull that back up. Does that kind of feel like there's a gun being fired? Boom. Kinda. Yeah, kinda. Something like that. We might want to tweak that a bit, but I think that's a start. I don't think that's the end all be all. I think a lot of times people, they do one thing and they think, well, there you go, it's a gunshot. And I'm all into layering things to try to create something bigger and badder, right? So let's see if we can do something bigger and badder. Let's pull this thing up and let's look at what we can add to it. Because you guys had some really good selections, like add smoke, add sound. Let's see if we can do all that too. I do have, what was the other footage crate? I got a different muzzle one. Oh, this one is, can you see it in the upper right? It's almost like sparks and smoke. That's kind of cool. It happens pretty quick, but that's pretty cool. Let me do this. Let me bring that down into a track above the two I'm already using. And I'm going to lock the second track too, because anything I've done here, I don't want to accidentally move those while I'm trying to move this other thing. So let me get right at the spot that I was talking about there, our first marker. Let me move this over and see what this looks like. Okay, first of all, it's in the wrong spot. So let's double left click on it and let's move that right up to where, what do we think, the center? That's probably like what we would consider the center of the gun, right about there, right? I don't like the sparks so much though. That looks kind of cheesy, doesn't it? I like the first muzzle flash, but the sparks here, it looks like a sparkler. I don't like that as much. What we might be able to do here, though, let me try this instead. How long do the sparks last? Oh, they only last for like one frame, then it goes right to smoke. Let's do this. This is a big thing that I try to tell creators. You're in control. You're in control of the project. Don't let other things control you. Don't let software control you. Don't let overlays, effects, assets control you. You control them. In a case like this, I don't like that spark thing. So just because it's built into that asset, I'm going to cut it off. So I'm going to take that very first frame here and slice it and delete that first frame and just move it back. So now I go, oh, okay, well now it's more like just smoke coming out. The only thing I don't like is the smoke I can see in front of the muzzle flash. Let's do this. Let's unlock this track. And can I move this track up? I don't think I can. Let me do this. I'm going to add another track between 1 and 2 because I'd like to move this into a track in between them. And the easiest way to do that is I'm going to use the Filmora 10 track manager. And I'm going to add no audio tracks, 0, but I'm going to add one video track above the main track, above track 1. That's where I want it. So let me do that. It opens up a track. And let me pull this down instead. Now the smoke is behind that. Can you see that subtle change? When the smoke is on top, I can see this weird line. It looks kind of funky right there. So I'm going to put the smoke behind the muzzle flash. And I think it's more convincing. And I know that's a subtle change. But these are the things my brain does, like 100 miles an hour. Like, I don't like, that doesn't quite look right. I can see it looks fake right there. So let me put it behind it and see if I can get it to look a little cooler, right? Let's see. What was that? It would be cool if you get also added smoke. Yeah, smoke's going in. We're leaving the smoke in, my friend. This is going to be smoking. So, dad jokes all day long. Here's one of the problems, though. Look at when I look at the length of this effect. Does the smoke disappear before the next? Yeah, pretty much does. I think I can clip that. I'm looking at that one extra frame here. And is it, it's probably off screen because I moved it enough. So I can probably slice that last frame off and delete it. And what that does is it lets me take this last thing that we just did. I can hopefully right click on it if Filmora wants to be nice, copy it. And as long as I have that track selected, I just click over here and see how it turns black. I can then right click and paste and it'll put it right where the playhead was. Now, same thing applies, right? I have to make sure the smoke is in the right spot. That's tricky. How do we make sure the smoke is in the right spot? Let me move it up for a second and let me bring that one extra flame. That little frame there really helped me get it lined up. So I'm going to just put that back for a second. I'm only keeping the sparks here to help line it up so I know that it's in the right spot. Now I can delete it and I can bring it back down and it should be lined up well. let's move ahead and let's do that one more time on this third shot, okay? So that's right about here. Oh, and this third shot has a little more space. I can drag that out. Let me copy that and let me paste it right back into this that same track. But let's do the same thing. I'm going to bring it up for just a second because I know that hand is probably moved and I want to see where that, oops, that looks like I lost more than one frame at the beginning. There we go, right here. I want to see where that, yeah, looks a little low. Can you see that? So let me double left click on that on my timeline. Let's bring that kind of up here. Let me make sure I'm on the mark though. Oh, yeah, I wasn't on the mark. Let's make sure we're on the mark. That's where it needs to line up. Okay, that's where the hand is, so it should be right there. Now let's cut off that very first sparky bit that I don't like, that I think looks silly. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to put it back down here. Okay. So all I've done so far is I've taken that main track, that main footage, which was just a hand pretending to shoot a gun. Above that, I added the muzzle flare, and then I added the smoke. Now, the smoke is in between those just because, as we said, you see how that smoke looked funny when it was on top of the muzzle flash, so we put it behind. So that's all we have. I'm going to quickly render this, and we'll see how those elements go together. So we have 3 elements now. The gun, the hand, the smoke, and the muzzle flash. And if they're all working together properly, then this should start to look like something. So let's go back here a little bit and let's just let it play. Oh, that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool, right? That looks pretty cool. I like that so far. I love this comment. That looks like one dangerous finger. I agree. I wonder if that's what is that, a 38 Glock? I don't know what that is. So now we have flame, we have smoke. And we can tweak those more. We could play with the compositing and dial them back if we think. That's sometimes one of the things I also see, like when I'm looking at this, let me go full screen. One of the very first things I see is that muzzle flash is awfully bright, almost too bright. It looks a little fake. So one of the things you can do is if you left click on that and go up to the compositing tab in the upper left, it's the second tab down under the video tab, that go down to the drop down menu, and here's the blending mode. You can actually dial that back and maybe something a little less bright, maybe something in like 90-ish might make more sense. And then we can change the other ones too. Just because it's almost a little overpowering. That flash is so bright that it's like, it almost looks a little fake. It has to fit the the footage that we're putting it on top of, or else it'll look fake. And the smoke is actually a little bit weird too. It doesn't look totally realistic. If I dial it back a little bit again, I think that might help too. I think it's a little too much. What do you think? Maybe, let's take a quick peek. Maybe around 67 or something. Let's try that. Maybe like 67%. Dialing back the opacity, I think sometimes people forget that too, that you're in control. No, let's not do that. I'm not in control right now, as you can see by everything popping up. You're in control of your project, so don't be afraid to change things and go, let me try something different. That looks a little, really analyze it and go, does that look a little fake? Can I make that a little bit better? Let me see if I can tweak that smoke, and maybe it's too smoky. It's almost you can see that it looks layered on top instead of being part of the scene. And I think that little change is going to help us out. Yeah, I think so. I think it will. Let me see what's going on here. Yeah. I like that a lot better already. What do you guys think? Could you see that slight change of just slightly dialing things back, because the hands aren't really super bright. It's sort of it's a well lit hands in front of green screen, but it's not like super high contrast, super high color. It's very sort of middle of the road. Let me see. What was the comment? You think the fire should come first before the smoke? That's not a bad suggestion. I actually used the shot that they gave me, but that's not a bad suggestion. So you think the smoke should trail a little after? I don't think you're wrong. You know what? Let's take your suggestion and let's do exactly that. Let's take all 3 of these smoke pieces, right? I'm going to select all 3. The way I'm doing it, I'm just hitting Control on my keyboard and then clicking on different elements. If you hold Control, it lets you select more than one. And let's try that. Let's do exactly what you said. What do you think? Maybe 2 frames, push it back a couple of frames and have the smoke come a little bit after. I'll have to render it again to make sure it plays smooth, but maybe that's just enough. Let's knock it back 2 frames and see if that feels better, if that's too much, or if that's right where it should be. I've got a slow render today. Let's try this. Let me go full screen, and you guys tell me that. Let's see if that was a good suggestion. It may well have been. Oh yeah. Look at that. See, I totally agree. That was a much better choice. The sort of muzzle flash and then the smoke was a really, really great suggestion from Adamola. I hope I'm saying your name right. Adam, I'm sorry. I'm going to call you Steven. Mr. Steven. Mr. Steven says, hold back the smoke a bit so that the muzzle flash happens and then the smoke, that automatically looks better. This is one of those things, you agree, right? Yeah, Bob says the same thing. That definitely looks better. So just a little bit of that effect in there can really, thinking about, looking at the edit and saying, well, how can I improve this a little bit? Those slight changes can be huge. Maybe try adjusting the timing of the gunfire. It's possible. I thought it's possible. That's not a bad idea. That's something we should think about. Because I thought right when I'm like, it should shoot and then recoil, right? I don't want the shot. Usually what happens, that's a really fast action. The minute you pull the trigger, the gun recoils quickly because of that bullet firing out. So that's where I placed it. I think that's right. I think that feels, to me, you guys tell me if you agree, that feels about right to me. It feels like shot and then there's a recoil, as opposed to halfway through the recoil, the muzzle flash comes out. I'm going to stick with that one for now, but I think that was a good suggestion to take a look at that. I think it's pretty smart. Let me see. Did I miss anything in here? I want to make sure I'm catching all of your. I'm trying to catch all the comments. Please add James Bond title music, right? We should. I will totally get a community guideline. I'm going to get a claim on it or a strike, depending on how angry the people who own the James Bond music is. But we can add sound. Let's add some sound. I don't know if all these sounds will be able to be heard, but I don't know if Fillmore will play the sounds through for you, but I'll export it once we got them there, and you'll be able to hear it because I can play the video for you once we get the final product, and we can all judge how well we did here today. All right, let me shrink it down. So some other things you'd said is we needed a gunshot sound. I do have a gunshot sound, though I don't think you can hear it in here. Let me see if I crank it up in here. You might be able to hear it through my speakers. Yeah, I don't know if that came through or not, but it's a gunshot. It's called indoor gunshot. I'll take it. Let's bring that down into the timeline, starting with our very first spot. Okay, so let's use that marker right there. Now, the one thing I will say, this is what I will say. When you talk about timing, sound, light travels faster than sound. So I'm guessing if you were to take a shot, to make it feel like you're watching someone shoot, I bet you there's a millisecond delay between the shot and the sound. So it's not right at the same time. It's that slight distance, like you're away from that person, and the slight millisecond delay. So I'm actually going to try to put this not right on the marker. This is where markers come in handy. So you see this blue marker right there, right? I'll put the playhead on it. And I do a lot of my audio based on looking at the audio. So here's the gunshot. You see that big spike at the beginning? That's the big sound. So what I'm going to say is, let me move that back a bit. I don't want it right there. Let me pull it back so it's just one frame behind. Is that one frame? If I need more frames, if I need to adjust it tighter, I can increase the frame rate of the project. That's a little trick I do a lot. Like if I move a sound and it moves like one frame and now it's way too far off, I look at the frame rate of the project. And if I have the frame rate set at 25 or 30 frames, what I can do is I can change the frame rate to 60. It doesn't change anything other than that's how many frames it's going to give me in the project to work with. And that allows me to adjust things because I have more frames per second. That allows me to do more minute adjustments. But this might be enough right now. If we find that we can't get the timing right, I'll change the frame rate of the project. Right now, if I go up to File and Project Settings, the frame rate is at 25 frames per second. So we could change it here if we wanted to. Really quickly, let me check what this one was. Ty said what Ty said. Thanks for the tips that you gave me last week. You saved me so much time editing for my most recent video. When I install an updated version of Filmora, will I lose my shared media files? Thank you. Typically not, Ty. These are the things I want to tell everybody. If you do update Filmora, always have your project settings backed up somewhere. There's always that chance that you could lose something. Filmora is designed not to overwrite those and it's supposed to save them. And it's also supposed to save all of your shared files and project files. But sometimes if especially it's a big update, like when it went from 8 to 9 and 9 to 10, it gets a little wonky. So I always try to at least save a project with your save files in it. Then you can open them back up and make sure that they're there. But they should be fine. But don't be afraid to back things up. Better safe than sorry. I work too hard on my edits to have something disappear or get messed up. So, if you do have shared files, save one project just with the shared files and open it back up and you can load them back in. Oh, and there we go with a super sticker from 10999999. Thank you very much for the super sticker. I appreciate that. Where did we leave off? Where were we at? We were at the frame rate, right? So let me take a quick peek back here and see where we're at. We're at the frame rate. It's at 25. I'm going to leave it there for a second. If I change the frame rate, I'd have to re-render the whole project. So I'm just going to leave it at 25. And I'm going to see if that sound sort of one frame behind makes sense. One thing I'm noticing here, check this out though. Can you see how long the trail, like that sound trails off really far? Now my next shot is right in here, right where the second blue marker is. So if I tried to put another gunshot on this same audio track, it would kill some of that slow fade off, the fading out of this gunshot. And I don't want to do that. So let's see, I have 1, 2, 3 gunshots. Let's add some more tracks. I'm going to open up the track manager. I don't need any more video tracks right now, so I'll put 0. Let's add give me some, I'm going to add more sounds probably. Let's add 6 more tracks below track 1, below the first audio track. And now when I do that, you see, it just added a whole bunch of audio tracks right here for me to work with. So I don't have to add them one at a time and it put them out of the way. It didn't put them in an odd place where they may have, gotten in the middle of some other things I was working on. So it's all stacked below. All right, so that was 1. Let's do this. Let's take that same gunshot and bring it down, and let's start with the next marker. Here is, let me stretch this out. That's the second blue marker that we know. That's where we've called the gunshot point. Let's put this one frame behind. There we go. That's pretty good. And let's do that one more time for the third gunshot right there on that blue marker. Let's bring down that. And let's see, let me just stretch that out. So I got it. If you left click on the timeline and move left and right, it'll stretch it. Or underneath the preview window here, there's a little slider that'll let you stretch it out all the way. Either one works. I've done it both ways. I'm kind of used to doing this, grabbing the timeline, left clicking and holding up there and stretching it back and forth. But either one will do that same thing, whatever you're comfortable with. So let's stretch all the way there. That playhead is right on that blue marker. So I can scroll down and go, okay, let me put it 1 frame back. All right. So right now we have, let's review. What do we have so far? It seems like there's a lot going on, but it's all pretty straightforward. I might have more things. Let me stretch this. This is one thing you can do in Filmora too. Let me expand the pane here. Left click, hold, drag it up. Now I can see more. So I just increased the size of the timeline. So what we have here is the main footage. Above that, the second track there, that's the blue, that's the smoke coming out of the pretend gun. The one above that is the 3 muzzle flares. The reason there's 3, because we did 3 shots, 3 muzzle flares. And then each of these tracks is that gunshot, but it's fading out. The reason I put them in separate tracks is to allow the previous gunshot to continue to fade out when the next shot happens. Otherwise, it would sound like it got clipped. It would be like, pooh, and then stop abruptly, and we don't want that. That's one of the things that'll make it feel real. Let the next gunshot happen while the last gunshot sound is still ringing out, right? Makes sense? You hear my New England accent? Still ringing out. The thing is still ringing out, I tell you, Minga. I'm sorry, not enough, either too much coffee or not enough coffee today. All right, so now let me see. I'll let the other thing, you're absolutely right. 59 Wanders. Just want to thank you for having my back in a moment like this. All right, back to it. So now we have this, right? So now we have all these things kind of in place. The other thing that we talked about was because that one effect, let me pull this down so you can see it again. Left click right on that middle line and drag down and open this up. you can see that when we did this gunshot, there's a bullet casing. Let me see if I can move a little bit forward. Can you see that bullet casing right there flying down? I want to make it, I love that that's there, so I want to make it feel like that hits the ground and makes that clinking sound. So I actually have a bullet casing sound here that just sounds like a bullet casing falling on the ground. So what I'm going to do is let me give myself a little more timeline here. I'm going to see where I think that casing hits the ground. So let me start here. Let me just scrub. All I'm doing to scrub through the timeline is I'm holding my mouse at the top, right on the top of the playhead. I'm left clicking and holding, and then I just drag it, and that does a slow scrub. That's called a scrub. And I'm watching that bullet casing fall out of frame about there. And I guess it would probably hit the ground a frame or two after that, right? Because it has to fall all the way to the ground, right? You don't want it to make that bullet casing hitting the ground the minute it falls out of the scene, because if a person is standing, there's more distance. So the way to make that distance feel realistic is wait a second to let that bullet casing fall, right? And then hit the ground. That's what I'm thinking. Does that make sense? That could make some sense to me. Let me see. Keyframe. Let me see what this suggestions. What if you add some motion blur to the bullet casing falling down? You could do that. You could add some, but you'd have to, the trick there would be, is if I add motion blur to that, then what happens is if any of the other portion, I could technically separate it, but if I, because it's on one track with the flash, I would, if I applied motion blur, to apply motion blur to the flash too. So I then have to separate those two and take it out, and then do that thing where I have just the flash stay still, but then the bullet casing might have a little blur to it. It's a good suggestion though, right? See how far you can go. There's another great suggestion, right? Badruddin Fatih says, add some shake effect. That's a great idea. Like if you took a shot and someone was filming you taking a shot, would that sort of make a bit of a percussion in the room? Would the cameraman move a little bit? Would it have a little bit of shake? Would that, make it feel like the thing's moving? I love that idea. Let's get the bullet casing going and let's add a little shake effect to it afterwards and see what happens. I think that's a great idea. See, working together. We're building something together here. All right, let me pull this back open. So I have all of these tracks. I think I showed you that. I opened up a lot of tracks down below. I added a bunch of audio tracks. And like I said, I think somewhere around here is where the bullet casing would hit the ground. So let me select this track. I'm going to bring that bullet casing sound down and put it there randomly. I think that's about right. And it looks like it's, I'm trying to figure out how many frames back from the shot or after the shot it is. I guess I'll just do these by eye. This is the second shot. Bullet casing flies down out of scene, and maybe there it hits the ground. So let's add another bullet casing sound on another track right here. The reason I'm using, again, separate tracks is, see, this last bullet casing is still echoing off. I don't want to put it on the same track and clip that. I want to let that one echo or finish its sound, even though another sound is being created. I don't want to stomp on the last one. And I have one more shot right here. Let's move forward. There's the bullet casing falling down. Maybe right about there it hits it was out of scene here. And let's go a little bit more forward, and maybe that's where the bullet casing hits the ground. So let's try it right about there. Is that perfect? I don't know. Listen, we're trying, right? We're thinking it through. We're trying to just get a little bit of motion going here. I do like the idea of shake effect though. So let's see if we can get a little bit of shake into the scene wherever that occurs. Now, Filmora is kind of funky that if you add a shake effect to a track, it affects everything below it, which is good if you know that that's what you want. But if I added it just to the hand track would shake, and everything above it, the muzzle flash and the smoke, wouldn't shake. And that doesn't make sense, because if you were filming this, and it moved the camera, like the person filming, the gunshot happened and it kind of shook, then that doesn't mean that the muzzle flash and the smoke would separate from the gun. The whole thing should shake all together. So I'm going to go with, let's try that awesome, that was an awesome suggestion. Let me apply it to the top track, which would be the highest track we have is the muzzle flare. So I'm going to left click on that, right? Up in the upper left, you can go to effects. Let's go to downloads and let's find shake. I know it's in here somewhere. They always hide it on me. Let's see. I think it's under downloads. Any filters? I think it's under filters. There it is. Shake. All right, it's because they don't call it shake, so it's hard to find. The effects aren't called shake. There is a extreme, a chaos. What do we want? Just a slight shake. Maybe I don't know if. Let me just take a look at what some of these are. I don't want an extreme shake, but it's going to be very short, right? So let's bring it down, and let's just add a tiny bit of shake. I'm going to do this. I'm going to slice that shake so it happens above it. Let me see what happens if I put it above everything. If that gives me a bit of a shake. Let me do this. Let me go full screen. I put it in a track above, and let's see what happens. Not much shake there. Let's put it onto this. I can't do that. Let me delete that one, and let me bring it back down onto this entire. Let's put it right on top of the whole muzzle flash. That could be too long. It might shake the screen too much, but we'll check it out. Let's see what happens. Yeah, it was very slight, actually. Didn't really move much. I don't know. I'm not really feeling a ton of it. Let me make sure everything's turned on. And that one is, what one did I use? Extreme. It's not really giving me a lot of shake. What I might do is, that's not a bad suggestion. What I might do is export this, bring it back in, and then add the shake after once everything's combined. And that way I can control that shake a little bit more. So I'm going to take that one. Let me left click on that and let me lose the shake right now. But I think I've got most of the pieces here. I've got the gun, the smoke, the muzzle flash, the gunshot sounds. And then I've got the bullet casing hitting the ground, clink, clink, clink. So let me do this. Let me go to the end. I'm going to go to the farthest point where something ends. Actually, I should do the last shot. I'm going to go, there's the last shot. I don't want to get oh, he's got another shot in there. Let me not do that shot. I'm going to stop right about there. Let me do this. I'm going to right click on this piece of footage and I'm going to add a freeze frame, which will just hold that hand in place for me because I want it to stay there while this goes to the very end of the sound. I'm going to lose the extra. I'm just going to split that right there and delete this extra. So now it's all the same length as the sound effects. So it allows the sound to trail off. But that'll probably look a little funny with it just kind of being frozen in place. Why don't we add a little dissolve? We'll have it fade out at the end. Let me add a dissolve effect. That's usually under my favorites. Let me put it dissolve. So then what'll happen here, if I do this right, as the hand holds still, it should fade to black. There we go. So it's just holding still, and that way you can fade to black. I'll stretch it a bit. All right, so I think this is it. I think we have the basic components of what should feel like a gunshot effect. This took a little bit of time to do it, but it's only because we've been moving kind of slow. Typically something like this, if I was doing it on my own, I would have grabbed the assets and had this done probably in 10 or 15 minutes. Not too tricky. So let's do this. I want to export this. Let's send it somewhere. And we'll take a look at it because I can play the video for you, the final product, and we can all look at it and see if we made something good. Let's call it Gunshot. Gunshot. And find a place to put it. Download. Sure, that's a good place to put it. Let me check the settings. 25 frames per second. HD. 8,000 kbps isn't enough. Let's do like 80. I like it to look smooth. The sound is too low. Let's go 320 kbps so the sound is full. We got a good quality audio. Hit OK, and let's export this thing. So this was a good little... did that feel like it took a while to get there? Did that feel like we made sense along the way? You guys were super helpful in those suggestions. Did that feel like it was difficult to get from where we started to what we wanted to do? If it felt like it was easy to follow along with, give me a yes in the chat room. If it felt like, wow, I was totally lost, then say, no, I couldn't follow along. Easy to follow, yes. Not so easy to follow, no. Let me know in the chat. I'm going to sip my coffee. All right. Yes, we got, let's see. No, not too long. Definitely not a problem. They got a yes from Paul Peck. Joe says yes. We've got all kinds. So it seems like it was, all right, see, breaking that down. Smoking Ivory says yes. It's definitely a yes. Briary Creek says, whoop, I lost you. It says yes. Lots of yeses. So I think whiskey and sunshine off grid, yes. And of course, the obligatory, I love you, Daniel. Love you too, pal. Yes, Albie says yes. So we got it. I think so. I think sometimes people ask, like, Daniel, how do I do this? And the reality is if you just break things down, like think about what you want and the end product and work backwards. Like, I need this, and then assemble it. Things move much more smoothly. This is all done exporting. Let me do this. I should be able to upload this right up to here. Give me a second. Let me find this video file and we can play it right here. And we'll all judge if we did a good job. And I just want to say, listen, if it came out great, I'm taking all the credit. If it doesn't look so great, I'm blaming all of you. I'm kidding. I would never do that. Not to your face. All right, let's see. Let's try this, all right? Let's see. Let me pull this thing up. Let me try playing it. And let's see what we did and if it seems convincing, okay? That wasn't bad. I'm going to play that again. Let's take a look again. Full screen. Man, I don't know. That was pretty good. I think the only thing, maybe the bullet casing hitting the ground seemed a little late. Did that seem a little late to you guys? Maybe I held it off too much. Listen, take a second and take a listen with me and tell me if you think the muzzle flash looks about right, the smoke looks about right, does the gunshot sound seem right, when the casing would clink to the ground. Take another peek at that, and you guys tell me if things seem on time or if we need to do a little more tweaking here, okay? Close. It's close. What do you think? I'm feeling like the only thing I saw is I probably moved the clinking of the bullet casing hitting the ground back just a touch, just because I think it took a little too long to hit the ground. It wasn't convincing. It should have fallen a little faster, which means I would just move those back. So real simple adjustments like that. Don't be afraid to, I'm going to share this one. Don't be afraid to make those little adjustments where I would say, okay, this here, I'm going to look right at the middle spot here. Right when that bullet casing went out, it probably needs to be a little closer. So let me move that, a little closer where it clinks on the ground. So maybe somewhere more like, maybe even like halfway between, a little more than halfway between where each bullet shot happens. So that one falls a little bit. Let me move that back too. These three I'm moving. Those are the casing hitting the ground. So we'll go, okay, let's just out of screen right about there. Yeah, I think it was just too far off. I think it needs to hit the ground a little sooner than that. So I think that'll do it. And we could just quickly, this is the thing. I always like, just double check, make sure things do what you want. Don't be afraid to be your own worst critic, because you're the one that really is putting that stuff out there. So you want to make sure that what you put out there looks and sounds the way you want it to look and sound. So don't be afraid to go, let me export it. Let me look at the final product. Is there some stuff I could do a little better? There's some stuff, it's okay. I need to do a little adjustment, but I can live with that. I do that a lot. I'll do tutorials where it's like, you get the idea. Could things be a little bit better? Yeah, of course, they can always be better. Let me do this. Let me find this target and let's share that. Let's share this one with the slight variation of what we did, okay? Let me go here. Let me just find it really quickly. Let me see. I'm going to share a video file. I just got to find it really quickly. Gunshot 2. Okay, let's take a look at this with just a slight adjustment to the sound of where the bullet casing hits the ground. Felt like a little delay. Let me listen again. I like that. I think that looks good. Yes, good. Yeah. See, nice and easy. See, there's a simple, the reason I like doing these exercises with you guys live and having you guys join in and give some responses is I think that, sometimes people get really overwhelmed and expect video editing software to do the work for them. And it's really not that. It's your skill. You don't need like a really skilled anything. A skilled guitar player, excuse me, doesn't need the most expensive guitar in the world to sound good. It's in your hands. It's in your hands. So the same thing with the video editing. Let me grab my coffee. Give me a sec. The skill comes from taking the thing you see in your head and then making it happen in your video editing software by doing the exact same thing we just did. Deconstruct it. Figure out what you want it to look like in the end and break down what pieces you think you need to add to make that happen. And don't be afraid to question yourself. And don't be afraid to ask other people like I just did. You know, I said, well, push the smoke back a little. Make it happen a little later. It'll look better. Sure enough, it did. It looked better when you pushed the smoke back. So it's one of those things that we're always learning as editors. We're always trying new things. And if I ever do something with a gunshot effect, I'll go, oh, I remember doing this in a live stream. And there was some great suggestions about what sounds to add and where to put the smoke and the muzzle flash and adding, different sounds and different elements. And it worked really well. So these are things we learn, things here that might be applied to something else, not just necessarily a gunshot. If there's any kind of effect, an explosion, anytime you're layering things in and you need them to happen, think about that. Even when you're doing audio effects, like I have a video out that's right now, we're giving away one of these microphones if you haven't seen my latest video, where you guys get to put the soundscape to one of my videos. And that's one of the techniques is think about it. Don't just think so literally where you go, put this here, place that there, done. Adjust things, play around with them, tweak things, turn them around, make sure things do what you need them to do to get that effect to have the most impact, right? Be the most impactful. It's in your mojo. My middle name is Joe. I should change my first name to Mojo. Let's see. Here's another suggestion. Sounds good, but casing needs to be a little different on each shot. I love that suggestion. So to make the case, because it sounds too redundant, right? Gunshot would sound similar, but maybe the casing, if it bounced in a different area of the room, maybe it would have a slightly different tone, right? That's a great suggestion. So let's do that. I like what Albie said. So how would we do that? Let me get rid of this thing. Hold on a second. Let me share my my screen. How would we go about add this up there? How would we go about changing the sound? I'll let you guys answer in the chat. You guys tell me, how would we go about changing the sound right now with what we have so that the bullet casing, each time it hit the ground, sounded a little bit different? Suggestions, anybody? I'm gonna drink some coffee. Let's see, we've got echo. Echo is one way you can do it. You could add a little bit of echo to it. But then if one has an echo, why wouldn't the other one? But you could absolutely do that. Echoes are good. I love this one. Change the pitch. That's really smart. I love that. Double left click on the sound. Yes, that's how we access the controls to do that. You could change the EQ of it a little bit. Maybe make one not as bright. Maybe it fell a little bit over farther away. There's all those little things. Reducing the volume is another great one because maybe one wasn't quite as loud. I say we combine all of these things, right? Slower time, you could change, right? That's the pitch. You could also slow the time down, which by proxy would make it a little bit of a longer sound. You wouldn't even have to necessarily change the pitch at that point, but just stretch it out. Breathe, Daniel-san, always a good suggestion. I love it. Maybe adjust the pitch. Let's see. Reverse the sound. That would be a little funky. I think if you reversed it, it would go. It could work, but it would get quiet to loud, which might feel a little unnatural. But I always say you never know till you try, right? Real simple. Sometimes the answers are really simple. Get a different sound effect. Like see if you can find another. Maybe there's a different one that's a little different. That's another great option too. Let's start with exactly what we have here. All right. I'm going to use some of the suggestions you just said. Let's keep the first one. This is the first bullet casing. Okay. So when we scroll down, main track, smoke and gun muzzle flash. These are the three gunshots themselves. 1, 2, 3. And then these three slowly behind it are those are the bullet casings hitting the ground. So let's leave the first one the way it was. Let's grab the second one. Double left click on it, and in the upper left, I'm going to pull the pitch back just -1. So in the upper left, I just went back -1, and I think that gives a little bit of something, right? A little something on there. And And maybe we take this one, the last one. Let's take this last one here, double left click, and let's bring the pitch. Why don't we go up one? You want to go up one and give it like one higher? So original sound down 1 cent, 1 pitch, and then up 1 pitch on the second one. Did I hit OK on these? If I don't hit OK, it doesn't save it. Yep. There's OK. And why don't we take a little bit of the other suggestion? Let's use the audio effects, and let's put a tiny bit of small room on the last one. How about just the last one? Let me scroll down here. Come on. Put it right on the last one, and we'll just put a tiny bit. Let me double left click on that, and if I scroll down, you'll see the audio effects. Let me just take that. I don't want it super loud. I just want it to echo a little more on the last one. Let's bring it down to like 2 or 3, if it'll let me go to 2. Yeah, and hit OK. Now when we, now I'll do this. Is there anything else you guys are thinking? We're playing around here. Is there anything else? Can you use an echo effect to make it cinematic? You could, you know, like an echo, like a dum dum, right? A delay. You could use a delay on that and make it feel more cinematic. I'm starting with the basics, right? Let's see if we can just get it to look like a gunshot, and then we can figure out how to do what to do from there. I think that's pretty cool. I think that's pretty cool, right? Here's another one, low volume. I don't know if that's a suggestion, if you're just telling me that I have low volume. But that's another thing, is we can slightly change the volumes of them. Why don't we keep this first one at its regular volume? Let's take the second one and let's reduce it by, let's go -2. Let me make this full screen so you can see what I'm doing. There's different ways to do this. Everybody does it a little bit differently. If I double left click on that in the upper left, you'll see this fader. You can even move the fader, or a lot of times I'll just type in, let me drop it to a -2. And then this one here, we'll let it come back up so that it's, no, maybe the first one shouldn't be quite as loud. Let's go -1 so that the first one's a little quieter, the second one's a little more quiet, and then the very last one, as it fades out, has that a little more volume, so you hear the clink of it. It brings your attention to the very last sound, which is the bullet casing hitting the ground. I'm going to hit OK, and I'm going to export this one more time, okay? And we'll take a listen if those subtle changes take this over the top. I think they really will. I think every little thing that you do, Gunshot 3, let me make sure the settings are good, so it looks good, sounds good, 80,000, yep, that looks good. Every little thing that you do along the way to help a project be more convincing. This is a VFX thing, so that's important, especially if you're doing like a real video effects type of thing. But I think in general, whenever you're trying to make anything, I think it's important that you do your best to try to think it through and work to the best of your ability. If there's something you can make better, do it. If you can take a second to think about something and go, how can I make this better? Because if I make it better, it'll be better for the viewer. It'll be a better experience for them. So let me see if I can make it better. And if the slight little tweaks makes it better, then we're good to go, right? We make people happy. They go, hey, that was pretty cool. Let me do this. Let me get rid of this, remove this. Let me find this this third one that we just did, which is all the little suggestions you guys just threw in there, Gunshot 3. Let's throw this up there, and let's see what happens. Let's see what it does. It seems to sometimes be slow at the beginning. Hold on a second. Let me start it right here. One more time. Let's listen one more time. It's not bad. I'd probably tweak it a bit. I don't love all the timing. Maybe all the pitch corrections weren't perfect, but those are subtle little tweaks. We're looking at it. We've got our nose against it, right? So we're noticing every little change. But that's one of those things that I think that, a lot of times I'll edit something like this and then I'll go away. I'll look at it tomorrow, because sometimes looking at something with a fresh set of eyes can make all the difference. And ears too, right? Not just eyes, but ears. If you're working on something for a while, you lose a little bit of perspective. So sometimes it's great to go, let me leave it alone, and tomorrow I'm going to pop it right open and take a look and get my first impression, not having seen it in 24 hours, and I'll get a fresh set of eyes on it and see what I think. Or ask somebody else, what do you think? Am I missing something? Is this convincing? Because there's an overall effect that we're trying to get on people, an impact, right? Does it feel like we did a gunshot? Is something too loud? Is the casing sounds too loud? There's all kinds of levels and volumes we can change. But those kind of things are what can really take your project from like a 5 to a 9 or a 10. I'm just quickly checking out the add a reload mechanism sound to the gun. You could, right? You could do, but a reload is, you'd actually have to do the slide motion. Though you could do the sound of, you could actually sound the sound of the gun kind of recocking itself, the slide mechanism in a semi-automatic or, not a revolver. Even a revolver has a bit of a click turn to it, right? Click. Yeah, you could definitely do that. The layering them all in and then finding the right volume so that one didn't overpower the other can make all the difference in the world. I think these were great suggestions. You guys were really helpful today. Let's see. Pablo says, "Hey, Dan, you're amazing. I love your editing." Hey, I love everybody's editing. We all did this one together today. So thank you so much for helping out and giving us, doing this one all together today. Which Filmora can do this? Any one of them can. I'm using Filmora 10. But you could do this in Filmora Pro. You could do this in an earlier version of Filmora, 8 or 9. They all have very similar things. Actually, 8 doesn't have as many. 8 used picture-in-picture. So 9 or above, you could do this in pretty easily. You have not unlimited tracks, but 9 or above allows you to have up to 100 tracks of audio and video. So you can kind of go pretty endlessly and have a lot of ability to layer things on top of each other. Which would I prefer, the Filmora 10 or Premiere Pro? Depends on the application. Premiere Pro is it uses up more system resources. It takes a lot longer to do simple things like this because, this one wouldn't be too tough in Premiere Pro. But some of the things, bringing things in Premiere Pro isn't simple. Like it isn't just those 3 simple screens like Filmora. Hold on a second. Where did Filmora go? Where are you, Filmora? It just disappears on me sometimes. I guess I do prefer Premiere Pro. I'm kidding. Yeah, it's simple. The thing I like about this is it's just, your import screen, your preview screen, and then your timeline. Nice and simple. I like it for really fast stuff. That's why I prefer Filmora, because it's simple. I can move quickly. Coffee's getting cold, man. You're not wrong. I have to drink that. Can you do a rewind effect in Filmora? Yeah, I did a fast forward effect. Look on my channel, fast forward effect. It's the exact same effect. Just do it backwards. I taught all the steps. It's really good. You really need to try out Filmora. You should. It's decent. I really kind of like it, man. It does a nice job. It's simple. It's got a fast workflow. But I say, whatever software you like, don't use what I use. Use what makes sense to you. That's the most important thing. Get in there. It's like buying clothes or buying a car or buying a motorcycle or anything you buy. You find the one that feels right to you, that makes sense to you, that works with your workflow, that you get in and you go, yep, this feels right. And that's what you should use, because not all video editing software is built equal, and it's not always about better. It's about which one is right for you, right? So try to find the one that makes sense. You love my shirt. Yeah, Gryffindor. It's my Quidditch. I got a Quidditch match I got to get going to. I'm the Seeker, so I've been searching low and high. There you go. That was a Harry Potter reference and a rock and roll reference all in one. Hope someone got some of it. Guys, thanks for hanging out today. This was a lot of fun. We're going to be doing this every Sunday at right around 9 a.m. EST. So make sure, if there's anything that I didn't answer that you have questions about, feel free to drop them into the comments section of the replay. And join me next week at the same time. We'll do the very same thing again, but hopefully with a different technique. All right. I'll see you guys soon.